Welcome back, everyone. Talking about the 2016 presidential race. We've looked at a bunch of commercials from several of the candidates, and we don't get a chance to see them, so it's very interesting to see these. Now we have Brooke Grimsley with us. We're going to talk about a Donald Trump commercial. Brooke, thank you for being with us.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Donald Trump, we've certainly talked about him as the night has gone on, but this commercial is from a group that is opposed to Trump, right?
It is, and you can't talk about the race without talking about Donald Trump. And what the conventional wisdom has always been from establishment Republicans, media, everyone, that he would implode, that he would say something and it would be over. And so everyone has kind of sat back and let that happen, waited for that to happen. Now Club for Growth, who kind of represents the business, the establishment Republican wing of the party, has decided, well, we can't just let nature take its course. It may not happen. So they now are investing resources in negative advertising against Donald Trump, and that's what we're going to see as one of those shots.
All right, we're going to look at that in a moment, but Brooke, as we set it up, how effective do you think negative advertising will be against Donald Trump?
Well, with Donald Trump, he kind of lets everything bounce right off of him. I mean, he is the most transparent of all the candidates, I think, because we've known him. It's like, as citizens, we've kind of grown up with him. We really know who he is. So there's not really anything that you can throw at him that he can't have some witty or snarky response back to. So he always seems to really, even though he's very bold and tough with his answers, he always has some way to kind of bounce back from this.
Mm-hmm. And part of what a negative ad does is tries to define a person. Mm-hmm. We just know so much about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I guess you could say the same about Hillary. But okay, let's take a look at this commercial, then we'll come back and talk about it.
Which presidential candidate supports higher taxes, national health care, and the Wall Street bailout? It's Donald Trump.
In many cases, I probably identify more as a Democrat.
Trump wants us to think he's Mr. Tell It Like It Is, but he has a record, and it's very liberal. He's really just playing us for chumps. Trump, just another politician.
In many cases, I probably identify more as a Democrat.
Club for Growth Action is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Very interesting. So Club for Growth, establishment Republicans really trying to hit him, call him a liberal, which cannot be helpful. But so what happened after this commercial?
I mean, the whole thing that they wanted to do is expose Donald Trump's very, as they said in quotes, very liberal agenda. And I think this is great because, I mean, what's some of the things you see in there? You see him standing next to Hillary Clinton. I mean, that's exactly what you don't want. And also saying he identifies more as a Democrat. I mean, I think even though, like I said earlier, he can kind of bounce back from these things, they did a great job of really painting him a picture as a very more liberal candidate, even though he's trying to identify more as kind of a tough conservative Republican.
So does this work? I mean, it hasn't worked so far. Now, I don't know how big the ad buy was here. I've actually seen that commercial. I know that has been running a little bit, certainly in Iowa, New Hampshire. Does that work?
It was working in Iowa some. Part of Ben Carson's rise in Iowa and Trump's falling off was to this ad and others that had been hitting him among conservatives, especially in Iowa. But, the deck was reshuffled again a little bit last week where, he bounced back. Now, there are a lot of things happening there with Cruz and Rubio and others in Iowa. Iowa can go in any direction between now and then, but I think it's having an impact. But like Brooke said, he's a brand. Negative advertising kind of slides off of him because we think we know him better.
And, well, let's go to Tiffany. Hello, Tiffany.
Hello, yes. I don't understand why the media always seems to want to blame Trump. Okay, Trump is just saying that the majority of the people feel. Now, I'm a Democrat, okay, but I can totally relate to Donald Trump. And I know the media always wants to blame him, but I'm saying it's what he's saying is how people feel. And that's why he's high in the numbers, and he's going to win the Republican nomination. And,
okay, so you're a Democrat.
But Trump says a whole lot of things that I agree with. You know what I'm saying? So it don't matter what the media tries to throw at him. It don't matter nothing like the negative campaign ads. People relate to him.
Okay, well, thank you, Tiffany. What do you? I mean, that's interesting, and I think that's why he's been able to keep the momentum that he has.
Well, I mean, currently, if you look at all the latest polls released, Trump is leading. I mean, by far, he's leading. Ben Carson trailing a little bit behind him. I mean, like I said earlier, he's the transparent candidate. Just like Tiffany was saying, I mean, you feel like you can relate to him. There's nothing that you feel like he's holding back. I mean, he's very brutally honest, and he's very tough. And I mean, that's why his slogan is "Make America Great Again," because he knows that the American people feel like we're kind of like in a downward, almost kind of spiral. They want to be, liven back up, and that's what he wants to do. He's very vocal, very outspoken, and transparent. And I mean, you feel like you know him, and even if it's not necessarily relatable, because we're all not worth a net. What is it? A net. He's like worth $4 billion.
Well, it varies, doesn't it?
Yeah,
like
you never know what it really is.
Whatever he's spending on his
fuzzy math.
So I mean, even though we can't relate to that. I mean, he's just very open.
On the Democratic side, and it's interesting to me, she identifies as a Democrat, but she likes Donald Trump. And actually, I know some Democrats who like Donald Trump. I think on the Democratic side, on the establishment side, they're all excited that Donald Trump is doing well because they feel like if he wins the nomination, it would guarantee a victory on the Democratic side. What are you hearing in that world?
I think that's the conventional wisdom. And what we've got to understand is that he has tapped in, like Brooke said, to anger that is out there. And he is someone people feel they know. Yeah, I will probably make a lot of people mad, but I'm going to draw a parallel here. To Ronald Reagan to some extent. Not that any way that Trump's Reagan or whatever, but Reagan came along when the country was feeling bad. They thought people had a relationship with him, and he kind of said, hey, we're going to make America a shining city on the hill. He was like your grandfather telling you everything's going to be all right. Mm-hmm. There's some of that going on now. And they're different vehicles, different candidates, but there are some parallels.
And how he's not afraid to come out and really hit the other candidates. I mean, it's fascinating. A low energy, he calls Jeb Bush low energy, mm-hmm. which isn't the most vicious attack, no. But it's so, on another level, it is brutal. And so I almost wonder again, was he trying not to be vicious, or is he that clever that he knows what will really do damage?
I think he throws a lot of stuff out just to see what sticks. I don't know that.
Well, if you watch him on The Apprentice, I think that he's stayed the same personality-wise all the way through. I mean, there's his signature, "You're fired." I mean, he's just very bold and just throws things out there, as you said, and it just works. I mean, he's able to just kind of say stuff, and even though it's not necessarily nice, people are kind of like, I can kind of agree with that.
Well, let's go to Maria. Hello, Maria.
Yes, all I want to say is Donald Trump has got lots of money. So much money that he probably bought Clinton before, and he knows how politicians are. You can buy with your money anything you want to buy, but nobody can buy Donald Trump. Donald Trump, if you don't say what he told you to do, and it's not good to America, he will say you're fired. And
so are you supported? You like Donald Trump?
Like it is. He don't need the money from anybody to say, pay me back, like Obama had done with all these gay marriage and all that. They paying him back for all the money they put in Obama. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So two callers there.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that I certainly hear people talk about. They say he can't be bought. And I guess he's not taking PAC money, and people really seem to appreciate that.
They do. I think he's getting some contributions and things. And, he has a lot of money. It'll be interesting to see when you get into billion-dollar races how much of that he really wants to invest or needs to invest if he gets to a general election. But there is real support out there. There's real anger, and he's not the typical candidate that we've dealt with, at least as of late November.
And so, Brooke, is somebody? All right. So you've studied, you've watched. Where do you see him going? I mean, do you think he's going to fizzle out, or do you think he's going to get the nomination? I mean, where do you think this ends up?
Well, honestly, when I found out that he was going to run, I thought, well, this man's just going to fizzle out. I mean, there's no way that he could be taken seriously. But looking at his website, looking at everything he's done, even though he has said some very outlandish things at times, I think that he has done things very methodically. He's set things up well, obviously, by looking at the polls. And so I think we won't, we'll see a lot of Donald Trump coming up. I mean, I don't think we've seen the last of him by far. I don't think he's going to fizzle out. I think he's going to be on the ballot, and I think he's a true contender.
Absolutely. And as far as you see this race, how do you see it going forward? I mean, it's so tough to predict, but where do you see things going?
I still, and I could be very wrong, I still think it will end up being someone that the establishment can at least show some support to.
That means you don't think it'll be Donald Trump?
I still, I mean, we've been around this for a long time, and I just still, unless none of the rules apply. Now, I'll tell you one thing Donald Trump has got to do to have a chance is he's got to be disciplined. He can't have another performance like the one in Iowa that he got away with, because as people start to get serious about this and serious about him being president, that type of performance will unnerve them. And that will be the kind of things that his opponents will use to say, you can't trust this guy. He's not stable enough to be president. So,
well, I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank Brooke and all the others that came on. Thank all of you. Thanks, everybody, for watching and who called in. Now, stay tuned. Sportsline is coming up next. Have a great night, everybody.